Cutter Top 10, Cutter Top 10. You know you like it a lot. Time to see who is the best and the worst that's left to know. Baseball, basketball, football, hockey, NASCAR, wrestling, if I have to. So please join me, why don't you read? This is Cutter's Top 10. Hey there, Heather, ho there! It's Jeff Cutter Diamond. We're ready to rumble! Oh, alright. Hey there, Heather, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond with some more Cutter Top 10s, and this is block on September 20th, 2015, the day after Japan shocked South Africa in the Rugby World Cup. Canada, of course, getting their butts handed to them by Ireland. Well, that's expected. Blue Jays choking a knife-winning lead against the Red Sox. And the Yankees won too. Now, there were some, I'm doing the top 10 worst goalies in NHL history, but there were a couple of goalies that deserve to stay off the top 10 list, but become honorable mentions. And the honorable mentions are Tim Cheveldae and Davian Rhodes. Tim Cheveldae, of course, being the goalie that held Detroit back into being a powerhouse in the early 90s before his trade to Winnipeg in 94. Of course, Detroit got Chris Osgood and Mike Vernon in 95, and basically they helped Red Wings make the Stanley Cup Finals, but they didn't win. 97 they did. Davian Rhodes was on the list because he was basically a backup. He did become a starter for the lackluster Atlanta Thrashers when they first started out, but that was it. Okay, here's the top 10. Number 10, Rick DiPietro. Rick DiPietro was the first goalie ever since 69 or 68 to be drafted first overall by a team, and he was with the Islanders in 2000. DiPietro looked good because, you know, scoring was at an all-time low, and this is after the late 20s, early 30s. Unfortunately, he won only 3 of his first 20 games in the NHL in 2000-2001. He played 318 games for the Islanders, but won 130 games and took over $50 million of Charles Wayne's money. Pathetic, and all my Ranger buddies are going to be happy about Rick DiPietro being on the list. Why is he not lower or higher on the list? Well, there were goalies just worse than he was. Number 9, Dan Cloutier. Dan Cloutier was a very decent regular season goalie, but when it came to playoff time, he always choked. He did win 139 games, but he did lose 142 and tied 33. He did play for the Canucks that had offensive powerhouses, the Sedins, Trevor Linden, Marcus Naslund, and Matthias Ohlund. So unfortunately, Cloutier's playoff experience is why he's on the list. Cloutier choked in 2002, first of all, because the Canucks took the first 2 games of their first round series against the eventual Stanley Cup champ Red Wings in Detroit, of all places. And then Nick Lidstrom scores that center ice goal from center ice. I repeated myself. That floated over Dan Cloutier in the second period of Game 3. And I can remember CBC's Greg Millen saying, "That's an awful feeling for a goaltender, believe me." I do believe you, Greg Millen. And no, Greg Millen's not on this list. And of course, Vancouver went on to lose that game and lose the next 3 to go out of the first round. And Vancouver choked in 2003. No thanks to, well, thanks to Mr. Cloutier, because Minnesota, they had a 3-1 series lead on Minnesota, but Minnesota did come back from 3-1 down against the Avalanche. So what happened is that Minnesota came back from 3-1 down, although in hindsight Anaheim would have probably beat them anyway. The Ducks did do well because of J.A. Shiger's heroics in that conference final, only giving up 1 goal in 4 games. Who knows, Vancouver could have made the Stanley Cup Finals. Number 8 is Gilles Meloche. Gilles Meloche played 788 NHL games, the most on this top 10 list. He got his career going with the California Golden Seals. You can probably guess that something was wrong. He played 250 games for the Seals. He did win 58. He had 46 losses. That's not the most in NHL history. He was, I think, the second most in NHL history in one season, 46. And they played 78 games. I think it was 78 or 76. Or was it 80? I think it was 80. Anyway, he later played for the North Stars and actually helped them do well. He was part of the Minnesota team that shocked everybody and went to the 81 Stanley Cup Finals against the Islanders. He played for Pittsburgh at his end of his career, even with Mario Lemieux on his own team. He did win 270 games, which is impressive. But remember, he played 788 games, and he lost 351. Number 7, Ron Lowe. Yes, the former coach of the Edmonton Oilers is on this list. Basically, why Ron Lowe is on this list is because he played for the mid-70s Capitals and in the early 80s Devils, who were crappy. He played 145 games for the Caps and won only 30. Not even 1 in 5. Well, maybe. He had about a 200 winning percentage. And he played 81 games for the Devils in their first few seasons in the NHL, but only got 16 wins. He ended up only winning 102 games in his career, and his goals against was allowable .428, which was terrible, even in the 80s. He actually was backup for the Oilers in the 80s. That's why he hadn't done so badly. And then he went to the Devils. How about this? Number... oh, dear me. 6. Norm Mariko. Well, he didn't work any miracles. He was just terrible. And, of course, the Atlanta Thrashers were not that good either. He was a backup for the Atlanta. He played 46 games and only got 6 wins. 6 out of 46. That's just under 1 in 8. He played 66 games in the NHL and only got 14 wins. Pathetic. Number 5, Andre Racicot. Now, thinking that, hey, he won a Stanley Cup. Everyone else on this list didn't win a Stanley Cup. He won one with the 93 Habitants, but thanks to him being the backup to Patrick Roy. So anyway, of course he was Patrick Roy's backup from 1990 through to 94. Brian Hayward was, of course, Montreal's backup of Patrick Roy. In case you forgot who Patrick Roy's backup was back in the night. Well, it was Steve Penny, and then when Penny went to Winnipeg for Brian Hayward, it was a good deal. And of course Hayward was upset because he wasn't getting as many games in playing. So he demanded to leave. So he went to Minnesota in 1991 and then went to San Jose and just stunk it up. So anyway, Racicot stunk. He only won 26 of his 68 games. I remember having a clip on my computer of Racicot blowing a 2-0 Montreal lead in San Jose in San Jose's first ever season. Of course, Bryzgalov played against the Sharks because Patrick Roy didn't want to embarrass them. So anyway, he did win a Stanley Cup. That's strange enough. Numero Catra, Steve Passmore. Steve Passmore played every game in a low-scoring NHL era. From 98 to 2004, he played and only won 23 games. He played for the Hawks, Kings, and Oilers and didn't get a winning season. Passmore never hit the 9-10 mark. Because, you know, if you couldn't do it, if you couldn't save more than 91% of your shots given up, you were a liability because of the low scoring era. And Passmore never did. Bag. Number 3, Michel Balhumer. Of course, I kept thinking, I'm like, Michel Balhumer better be on our top 10 list. And yeah, of course. He played for the 75 Capitals, of course, the team that only won 8 games that year out of 80. He played 35 games for the Caps after he started in Philadelphia. Balhumer actually won 9 of his 19 decisions. 9 of his 19 decisions were wins in 72-73. He posted above 500, which was amazing, with the Flyers ahead of him. And he was exposed with the Capitals. He played 2 years with the Capitals and played 42 games with a 4.61 goals against. How many wins did he get? You guessed it. Nothing. Can you believe it? A goalie going through an NHL career of more than 20 games without a win? I don't think anyone other than Belhammer has done that. Anyway, number 2 is Hardy Astrom. If you ask Don Cherry who's the worst goalie ever, it's Hardy Astrom. Of course, you would be correct. Hardy Astrom, of course, the problem was that he played for the Colorado Rockies, who were in their infancy after being shipped from Kansas City to Denver. Astrom played 79 of his 83 games for the Rockies. His 4 other games, he played well for the Rangers, including his comeback, including the big win over the Habitants to break Montreal's then record 26-game winning unbeaten streak. And Don Cherry coached him for 45 of his 79 Rockies games. I remember reading Don Cherry's autobiography, Grapes, and you know how Hardy Astrom was so terrible that, you know, Cherry's wife could have saved more shots than he did. He tried. Don Cherry tried desperately to get rid of Hardy, or to basically get another goalie, because you know how bad he was. He said that. Well, this is an excerpt. One night between periods of another Hardy horror show, I walked into GM Ray Marin's office and got on my knees begging him to make a trade for a goalie. I felt sorry for the players because they were working their asses off. They come up with a goal and then bing, bing, Hardy would let 2 easy ones go by. In that book, GM Marin said, maybe we should get a goalie coach. And Don Cherry said no. Well, the goalie coaches weren't really that common back in the 70s. But Astrom once, his record 17, 44, and 12 in the NHL with a 3.74 goals against. And number 1, Ken McCauley. You don't know who that is? Well, if you're not a fan of the 1940s NHL, or don't remember the 40s NHL teams, then you're screwed. Because, I mean, give him credit. I mean, he did come in when the NHL's rosters were decimated because players went to war. It was World War II, and the Rangers were one of the hardest hit. The Habs were one of the least hardest hit because of the French-Canadian ways of life. So the Rangers used Ken McCauley as their starter for 2 seasons. He played all 50 games because there were 50 games in the NHL that year, and then he played 46 in year number 2. But he had an NHL record. Unfortunately, a negative one. A season goals against of 6.24. And this was over an entire season, which means they played all 50 games in the NHL that year. This season, and of course the season included that 15-0 drubbing of the Rangers by the Red Wings. He did pretty well. But his numbers ended 17, 64, and 15. He did worse than Astrom. He tied him for wins in a 5.61 goals against average. Poor Rangers. But you know, the Rangers kind of came out of the light with Chuck Rayner, if I do remember correctly, just bringing him to the 1950 Stanley Cup Finals. So that's it for the top 10 worst NHL goalies of all time. And don't forget, hopefully you can read this. So bring back TV sumo, because sumo on TV has not been on for years, and I really want to see sumo back on TV. So please support TV sumo, and I doubt people will anyway. So anyway, that's it for me. There'll be a few other top 10s coming up in this block.